I lie here on this frozen ship, my body broken and failing, and I know my end approaches with the same certainty I once possessed in my laboratories when I believed I could conquer death itself. The ice surrounds us, trapping the horizon in its merciless grip, and Captain Anderson's crew watches me with a mixture of fear and fascination as I recount the tale that led me to this desolate wasteland at the edge of the world. My leg, shattered in the explosion that destroyed my tower, throbs with pain that reminds me I'm still mortal, still vulnerable, still human despite my attempts to transcend such limitations. My story begins not with science, but with loss, the kind of profound grief that reshapes a soul. My mother died bringing my brother William into this world, and with her passing, something inside our family died as well. My father, a renowned surgeon whose skills were celebrated throughout Edinburgh, turned cold and distant. Where once there might have been warmth, there was now only the clinical precision of a man who saw everything as a problem to be solved or discarded. William became his favorite, the golden child who could do no wrong, while I became the reminder of what we had lost. The abuse I endured at my father's hands was not always physical, but it was constant, a steady erosion of whatever child I might have been. I threw myself into my studies, seeking in science the answers that religion and family had failed to provide. I became brilliant, obsessed, driven by a singular purpose that consumed every waking moment. Death was the enemy, the final insult to human dignity and achievement. If I could cure it, if I could reverse its effects, then perhaps my mother's loss would have meaning, perhaps the pain would transform into triumph. By 1855, I had already established myself as a prodigy at the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh, but my experiments pushed beyond what society deemed acceptable. I reanimated corpses, brought dead tissue back to function, and for this they called me a heretic. The disciplinary tribunal convened, and those small-minded fools denounced my work as sacrilege, expelling me from the institution that should have celebrated my genius. But where others saw an ending, I found opportunity. Henrik Harlander, an arms merchant whose wealth flowed from the ongoing Crimean War, approached me with an offer I could not refuse. Unlimited funding, complete freedom, an isolated tower where I could work without interference or judgment. I accepted immediately, already envisioning the laboratory that would become my cathedral of science. I enlisted William to help me build it, watching him work with hands that our father had never struck, feeling both affection and resentment toward this brother who had known only approval where I had known only condemnation. It was through William that I met Elizabeth, Harlander's niece and my brother's fiancée, and in her I saw something I had not expected to find again, a spark of connection, a possibility of human warmth. I made advances, clumsy and desperate, and she declined with a gentleness that somehow made the rejection worse. The work consumed me. Harlander grew impatient, demanding results with the same urgency he applied to his weapons contracts. I harvested body parts from hanged criminals at the gallows, from soldiers whose bodies returned from the Crimean battlefields already cold and stiffening. I assembled my creation with meticulous care, fashioning a large and powerful form that could withstand the massive electrical currents I planned to channel through its lymphatic system. Lightning would be my instrument, electricity my brush, and life itself my canvas. As a storm gathered on the horizon, Harlander revealed the true extent of his desperation. Syphilis was devouring him from within, and he demanded that I place his brain into the creature I had built. I refused, appalled at the perversion of my scientific vision. In his rage and deteriorating condition, he attempted to sabotage the experiment, but he fell to his death from the tower during our confrontation. That night, as lightning split the sky, I activated my apparatus and sent electrical charges coursing through the body on my table. The creature convulsed, its massive frame jerking and twisting, but when the storm passed and silence returned, it lay still and lifeless. I had failed, all my genius, all my preparation, and I had created nothing but an elaborate corpse. Exhausted and defeated, I retreated to sleep, convinced that my dream had died with Harlander's broken body at the base of my tower. Morning brought a miracle. The creature was alive, its eyes open, its chest rising and falling with breath. I chained it immediately, overwhelmed by a mixture of triumph and terror at what I had accomplished. Its strength was immense, far beyond normal human capacity, and its flesh healed with supernatural speed. I marveled at these attributes even as I struggled to communicate with it. Teaching it proved frustratingly difficult, and I could only get it to speak one word: my name, Victor. My frustration grew, and in my anger I found myself repeating my father's cruel methods, disciplining the creature with harshness and violence, becoming the very monster I had sought to escape. When William arrived with Elizabeth, everything changed in ways I could not anticipate. Elizabeth questioned my treatment of the creature, seeing in my creation something I had refused to acknowledge, not a thing, but a being deserving of compassion. She bonded with it, teaching it to speak her name with a patience I had never shown. Watching them together, I felt a jealousy so intense it frightened me, and I knew then that I had lost control of everything, my creation, my family, and myself. I lied to William, telling him that the creature had killed Harlander, manufacturing a threat to justify what I planned to do next. I sent them away and set fire to the tower with the creature still inside, intending to destroy the evidence of my hubris. But as flames engulfed the building, I heard it cry out my name, and something in that sound broke through my rage and fear. I tried to re-enter the tower, to save what I had tried to destroy, but the explosion that followed shattered my leg and threw me clear. The tower collapsed, and I believed the creature had perished in the inferno that consumed my laboratory and my dreams. But it had survived. It escaped into the woods, and what happened next I only learned much later, when we faced each other again in circumstances I could never have imagined. The creature found shelter in the mill gears of a hunter's farm, watching a family through the walls, learning their language and customs like a silent ghost. They called him the spirit of the forest when he secretly helped them, never knowing the truth of what observed them with such desperate longing. A blind man, the family's patriarch, taught his granddaughter to read, and the creature absorbed every lesson, developing intelligence and eloquence that surpassed anything I had believed possible. The creature befriended the blind man after the family departed for winter, and in those conversations learned not just language, but philosophy, not just words, but meaning. He struggled to remember his origins and eventually returned to the ruins of my laboratory, discovering there the truth of his creation and the address to my family estate. When he returned to the farm, he found the blind man being attacked by wolves. The creature fought them off, his strength and immortality proving their worth in service rather than violence, and he comforted his dying friend before the returning hunters drove him away in terror. The realization that he could not die, that he would spend eternity alone and rejected, drove the creature to seek me out. He found me on the night of William and Elizabeth's wedding, appearing like a nightmare made flesh, to demand that I create a companion for him. I refused, my disgust and regret pouring out in words designed to wound and diminish. The creature attacked, and in the chaos I grabbed a pistol and fired, but Elizabeth stepped between us, her compassion for the creature leading her to embrace him even as my bullet tore through her body. William was mortally wounded in the fighting that followed, and as my brother lay dying, he called me the true monster, speaking a truth I had refused to acknowledge. The creature carried Elizabeth to a cave and stayed with her as she died, offering her the gentle comfort I had never given him. Meanwhile, I descended into madness, consumed by the need to hunt and destroy what I had created. I pursued the creature north, ever north, following tracks across frozen wastelands as winter closed in and the world became nothing but ice and rage. I tried to kill him with dynamite in the Arctic wastes, but even that proved insufficient. He was stronger than me, more resilient, more capable of surviving in conditions that would kill ordinary men. I failed, collapsing on the ice, and it was there that Captain Anderson's crew found me, half frozen and delirious. Now, as I finish recounting my tale to these Danish sailors trapped in polar ice, I realize that my creature has found us. He boards the ship, and Captain Anderson confronts him, but before violence can erupt, the creature reveals his own version of events, filling in the gaps in my narrative with truths I had refused to see. Everything I believed about my creation was wrong, not because the facts were incorrect, but because I had never understood what those facts meant. I had created life, but denied it love, fashioned consciousness, but refused it compassion, brought a being into existence, and then rejected every responsibility that came with that act. The creature stands before me now, and I see clearly for the first time what I have done. My remorse overwhelms me, and with the last of my strength, I apologize for everything, for the cruelty and abandonment, for the violence and rejection, for treating him as an abomination rather than as my son. He forgives me, calling me father, and in that moment, I understand that he has always been more human than I ever was. My injuries are too severe, my time too short, and as death finally comes for me, I am no longer afraid. The creature stays with me, and I die knowing that whatever else I did, I created something capable of mercy that I never showed him. After my death, the creature uses his enormous strength to push the ship free from the ice that held it captive, ensuring that Captain Anderson and his crew can return home safely. Anderson, who had been pursuing his own reckless goal of reaching the North Pole, recognizes the futility of such obsessive quests and orders his men to sail for home. The creature remains alone on the ice, and in his final act, he reaches out to embrace the sunlight, just as I once taught him during those brief moments when I remembered to be something other than the monster my father had made me. My legacy is not the triumph over death I imagined, but something far more complex and terrible. I proved that life could be created, that the boundary between death and existence could be crossed, but I also proved that creation without responsibility is the truest form of monstrosity. The creature I brought into this world was innocent, capable of love and learning, deserving of guidance and acceptance, and I gave him nothing but pain. He became a mirror, reflecting my own cruelty, and in that reflection, I finally saw myself clearly, not as the brilliant scientist defying God and nature, but as a man who had learned nothing from his own suffering except how to inflict it on others.